And then we never really had the same amount of people leaving the trades come back into the trades. More and more people are leaving, fewer and fewer are getting in. And so now we have a gap, and we have a massive gap in labor in the trades. And it's just a gold rush opportunity for those that are willing to put in some hard work initially and capitalize on this opportunity that we have right now.
You're a man living in the modern world in a time when men and manhood are not what they once were. You live life on your own terms. You're self-sufficient. You think for yourself and you march to the beat of your own drum. When life knocks you down, you get back up because in your gut, you know that's what men do. You're a badass and a warrior. And on the days when you forget, we are here to remind you who you really are.
Welcome to Sovereign Man Podcast, where we aim to make men masculine again. We got a great guest for you today, Brad Huebner. Welcome to the show, Brad.
Nikki, thanks for having me. Looking forward to it.
Thanks for being on the show, my man. So we got to meet each other because you actually interviewed me on your podcast a couple weeks back. And
Yep.
We connected. You know, you're a man's man, and I respect that a lot about you. What you do is you help men who are also man's men. So I respect that a great deal. And I thought that you'd have some good advice to give to men, especially when it comes to career, business, success, from the point of view of being a masculine man's man. But before we get into all that, tell us a bit about who you are. Tell us your backstory.
Yeah, so I graduated high school in 95, and then shortly after joined the military. I don't know if we talked about this or not. I went to the Marine Corps, actually. Did 4 years in the Marine Corps, in the infantry. And then I quickly realized that it's not really a great career choice if you want to have a family and do the whole career profession type thing. So I got out after 4 years and then tried a couple different things, and then finally ended up into construction, working as a superintendent, and then eventually being a lead carpenter for another guy, and then starting my own business. And then about 13 years later, started doing business coaching for contractors. So that's the 30,000 foot view of who I am.
So first of all, thank you for your service. I mean, it's because
Absolutely.
men like you who are willing to put themselves on the line to fight, to bleed, to die, that the rest of us get to live under a blanket of freedom and pursue our dreams. So I say thank you to you personally, but also to every man who's ever done this, because that's, to me, the most unbelievable thing. You know, in the Bible, it says, no greater love hath a man than this, to lay down his life for his friends. And that's what the men in the military are willing to do every single day. And that means something to me. It means something awesome. So tell me, what really had you decide to get into construction, to get into a skilled trade in the first place? And why do you think it's a good place for a lot of men to be?
Yeah, well, it actually started back in high school. I thought I wanted to be an architect. And, I liked drawing. I liked doing that aspect of it. And I actually took some T&I classes. Back then they were called T&I. And it was just basically, it was like a focused, class. It was a 3 credit hour class. And I had to get on a bus and go to another high school and, take this architectural drawing class. So my junior and senior year in high school, I actually, spent the whole 2 years doing architectural drawing. Thought I want to be an architect, learn AutoCAD and all that stuff. Well, didn't realize is that you actually have to have good grades and, like going to school in order to go to college and become an architect. So I realized that was not going to be the career path for me. By the time I graduated, I was done with school. Like, did not want to learn another single thing ever whatsoever. And so fast forward, this is probably, I don't know, 5 or 6 years after I got out of the Marines. I'm trying to think it was about 2005. So yeah, about 5 years after, I found myself an opportunity to be a superintendent for a developer, a local developer who was building his own stuff. He was a developer. Basically, he was building his own strip malls, homes and stuff for himself, not for somebody else. And I had an opportunity to be a superintendent, and I kind of fell back on the architectural drawing classes that I had taken in high school, because I had the knowledge of, like, how buildings go together and how homes go together and wall sections and all that stuff. And my dad has always been a kind of a jack of all trades. He was a diesel mechanic. And so, we would always, like, if we needed a new roof, we'd put it on ourselves. If we needed a fence, we'd build it ourselves. That kind of family, just handy and always, just handy and always doing all that stuff ourselves. And so it was kind of the transition. And so then I got into being a superintendent. I worked for there a couple of years. He got into some financial troubles, changed over working for one of our subs as a finish carpenter, learned the trade, a couple of years doing that. And then I ended up starting my own business. And it was really, I can look back on it and say it was totally God's plan, like, for the direction of where I was going. Obviously, looking forward, I could not have planned it out. But I remember distinctly when I decided to start my own business, I remember calling my mom. I was talking to her. And during this time, I was actually going through a divorce. I'd gotten married right out of the Marines. And
I'm sorry to hear that, brother.
Yeah, and it wasn't my decision. It was actually her decision to get divorced. And, obviously I can't stop somebody from doing that. But it is what it is. And I'm happily married now. Like, everything worked out for me. Don't shed a tear for me too much. But I remember calling my mom and, was just trying to figure out some stuff. And I remember telling her, starting my own business, it was like I was following along with Jesus, who was a carpenter, right? As we all know, like, that was kind of like this, I was like following in the same footprints. And I just remember having that conversation with my mom on the phone, and it was an emotional call. And so, to shorten this up, I mean, that was kind of the transition to get to where I'm at now. And then eventually, through hiring business coaches, going through that, getting help, I fell in love with that process and that journey. And so I kind of shifted careers, if you will, into coaching other men in their construction businesses.
So why do you believe this is a good place for a lot of men to be right now, in this day, in this time?
Well, this is, I call it the contracting gold rush. You know what I mean? Like, back in the 40s, what was it? The 49ers.
Yeah,
the 49ers, the gold rush. That's kind of how it is in contracting. Like, after 2009, which, by the way, I started my construction business in 2009. Like, everybody was leaving in drones because that was a 2008, 2009 housing market crash. And everybody was leaving the industry in drones. And I thought that was a great time to start my own business. And so we had a mass exodus then. And then we never really had the same amount of people leaving the trades come back into the trades, right? And so then over the next 15 years or so, however long it's been, more and more people are leaving, fewer and fewer are getting in. And so now we have a gap, and we have a massive gap in labor in the trades. And it's just a gold rush opportunity for those that are willing to put in some hard work initially and capitalize on this opportunity that we have right now.
So, contracting gold rush, more and more people are leaving the trades. So if a young man is listening to this and he's thinking which direction I should go in, talk about what the trades makes available to him, whether he wants to be an employee or whether he wants to start a business.
Either one. I mean, honestly, you could be an employee and make six figures. Not your first year in business, unless you're doing a more skilled, unless you're like an underground welder or underwater welder, you could probably make that money now. But you can, within a very short period of time, you can make a very good living as an employee. If you want to choose the route of entrepreneurship and starting your own business, then then the sky's the limit of where you can take that. But I mean, there's just so much opportunity. I mean, even my clients, every one of my clients is looking for a good employee, and they're willing to pay top dollar, not the going rate, not to be competitive. I mean, they're willing to pay top dollar for standout employees, for A players. And so it's not that hard. The bar is very low. You know what I mean? Like if you just have a decent work ethic and you show up on time every day, you can make a very good living in construction.
That's pretty crazy. You're telling me somebody can go be an employee, so have none of the risk of needing to start a business or anything like that, and they can make six figures.
Yeah. Yeah. I
God
mean,
damn.
obviously each area is a little bit different. Each trade's a little bit different, but yeah, you can definitely do that.
Six figures. My man, that's nuts. Is that not nuts?
Yeah.
Are we crazy here? That's crazy. That's crazy. An
Yeah,
employee. So if an entrepreneur gets into the business or is in the business and they do it right with the help of like someone like you to coach them and help them think through how to do it, you're telling me they can have a 7-figure, 8-figure business.
if that's what they want, and yeah, and they're willing to do what it takes, yeah, absolutely.
You know, the other day, I really like Dana White of the UFC. Okay.
Hmm.
And
Yep.
if he's on a good podcast or if there's a clip of him speaking on Instagram or YouTube, I'll usually watch it. And there's a clip that I was watching the other day, and it wasn't the first time I'd seen it. I'd seen it multiple times. But he was talking about how simple it is for a man to like win, to clean up today. He said, if you have a halfway decent work ethic and you're a savage, the level of competition is so low right now that you will absolutely clean up. Absolutely clean up. So the men that listen to Sovereign Man, they're savages and wannabe savages, right? These are types of folks that want to put in the work, want to get better. And to me, it strikes me that there's so many men that don't understand how incredible an opportunity they have today in the contracting gold rush, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Couldn't agree more. I mean, every single day. I mean, one of my clients, I had to advise him to fire his 2 employees, only 2 employees, and go back on the tools temporarily because they were a cancer to his business. I mean, they were not, good employees. And so, like I said, literally, if you just show up on time every day and you have a decent work ethic, you don't have to be like, work all 18 hours a day. I mean, you just show up put in a good 8 hours and go home every day. You can have a good life in construction. And I mean, my clients are always constantly looking. They're all over the US. I have clients all over North America, Canada, and the US. And every one of them would hire an A player that walked in the door in a heartbeat, even if they have zero experience. Like just someone who has a good work ethic, who wants to do good, who wants to bring value to the business. They will hire them in a heartbeat and pay them well.
So, Brad, I've been cognizant of the fact that people have been leaving the trades and not as many people are coming back in for a few years. And I've been thinking to myself, would I tell my sons right now, go get a law degree or go into the trades? I'd probably tell them to go into the trades ahead of going to get a law degree. You know what I mean? If I
Yep.
were 20, 25, 30 right now and looking for something to do, I'd look at the trades. I'd look and learn a trade really well, and then I'd go start a business in that trade. And I get myself a coach, someone like you, to say, okay, man, how do I get to my first million? And then how do I get to my first 2 million, 5 million, 10 million? And how do I set it up for sale? Because I figure if I was 25 and starting in the trades, I probably want to work for two to 3 years as an employee, really learn what I'm doing,
Mm-hmm.
and stay 28, go into business for myself. Figure the first year, not going to make a lot of money, but get some clients, establish a bit of a reputation, hire a coach. Second year, probably get into six figures, 6-figure business. Third year, I'd probably take home six figures and be in the mid six figures. Fourth year, get to a million. Fifth year, see if I could double that, and then have a plan from year 5 to 10 to get it to 10 million and then have a plan to sell. So within 10 years, I'd be financially free with an exit of 15 to 20 million. What's wrong with that?
I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Yeah,
Right?
I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I mean, obviously, different parts of the country, different trades, are going to be easier
Sure,
than others. I mean, if you're doing 1 million as a home builder, that's not very good. I mean, like that's two
sure,
half a
sure.
million dollar homes. You've only building 2 homes a year. That's not very good. But if you're say you're a painter and you have $1 million painting business, that's pretty good. That's actually pretty good. You know what I mean? So depending on what trade you're in, but yeah, absolutely, that's definitely doable.
And if you're like if you take your business and you make it like a $10 million painting business or framing business or whatever the heck it happens to be, or landscaping business, man, you're all set. You are all set,
Yeah.
right?
But here's a different angle of this too, Nikki. I want to bring it. Like, you don't have to. Not everybody wants to like be a boss and have a bunch of employees, and not everybody wants to have an 8-figure business. But
No,
here's the beauty of it. I mean,
a
you
lot of
can be
people
a
do.
one-man operation. You can or maybe just have a helper and still make multiple 6 figures a year as an income, work whenever you want, take off as long as you want, and still have the ideal life that you designed for yourself and be content with that. There's nothing wrong with that. I call those lifestyle contractors, right? Like they have a job. I mean, they're doing the work, but they're making really good money. And if they want to take off for 2 months in the winter, they can do that. If they want to get into other things like investments and flip homes, they can do that too. I mean, there's lots of ways that you can set yourself up for success. It's the only path is not build a $10 million business and exit. That's not the only path to have
No, no,
success. Although that's
no. But it's a
certainly
path
one
I
that you
like.
can do.
It's a path
Yeah,
I like. It's a path I
sure,
definitely. Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah, yeah. It's uh, so, Brad. Imagine that there's men listening to this show that are trying to find their way. They may be excited that President Trump was reelected president. They got some hope that all this anti-man BS is on its way out, but they're looking for a way to win. They don't want to be lost anymore, right? They want to be like winning. So, what's your advice to them?
Well, the first thing is turn off the daggone news. I mean, just turn off all things news related and completely isolate yourself from anything that is mainstream media, because it's all a bunch of
BS.
lies and hoopla I remember I used to listen. This was several years ago, but I would listen to talk radio, listen to Sean Hannity and all these different shows, and I was just mad all the time, Nikki. Like just
Yeah,
always
yeah,
pissed off. And finally, I was like, "What am I doing?" I quit listening to all that, and then I quit listening to the news at all. And that's the first thing. The second thing is you got to surround yourself with around a bunch of guys who are like minded, who are either on the same path and trajectory you're on or above you. You know what I mean? And it's okay if there's a few that are below you, but they're on the same path that you're on, and surround yourself, you know, in that peer group of people that are doing what you want to do as well. Because it's, you've all heard the saying, you're the combined average of the 5 people you hang around with the most, right? And
yeah,
so
absolutely.
that's true. Like you can't, if I put you in a room with 10 other multimillionaires, there's no way you wouldn't become a multimillionaire if you hung around with them long enough. Like it's contagious. It's going to rub off on you. They're not going to let you not get there. And so that's the second thing, is really just surround yourself with the people that are doing or wanting to do what you do.
Yeah, I think it's very important. Both those things are good pieces of advice. The news is not your friend. Um, Love Sean Hannity and all, but yeah, the whole business model is based on pissing you off. The
Yep.
whole business model is based on pissing you off. You don't need that. They make you feel bad to make money. Yuck.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
And, you know, in the last 5 days, I've done half a dozen speeches to various business groups. And in most of those speeches, a part of my speech was showing people, how you and I talked about podcast guesting
Mm-hmm.
when I spoke with you last. And I was talking about how Donald Trump rode podcast guesting into the White House,
Oh
right?
yeah.
And since I came up with this idea, and I've been on about a dozen podcasts talking about this prior to this, people are writing about it now. I saw an article about it today that one of the key members of the Harris team was saying that big reason why she lost is she wasn't on podcasts. She didn't have her finger on the pulse of the culture anymore. And Democrats in general don't. They're just using the mainstream media, which is all about selling bad news, and that's not where people are anymore, right? Donald Trump got this. Donald Trump understood this. He came on shows, and the reason podcasts are successful now, even with political figures like Trump, is it's not all negativity. In fact, it's really positive. There's a hopeful aspect to listening to Joe Rogan talk to Donald Trump, right? It isn't all gloom and doom, right? And the truth of the matter is you're way better off listening to podcasts right now than you are listening to the news. Way better off. Read books, listen to podcasts. Read books, listen to podcasts. That's what you ought to do. And, these 6 talks I've done in the last 5 days to a bunch of different groups, some big, some small, some really big. The key thing that I was telling everybody in the audience was that if you want to win in 2025, being a guest on other people's shows, just like you're being a guest on my show right now, is the fastest and best way for you to build relationships and reach customers. Let's face it, spending money on ads, that's the traditional media model, right? It's not really working anymore, right? You spend a ton of money, you don't get much of a return, right? You could spend like $1 on Facebook 5 years ago, get $20 back. Today, you spend like $20 on Facebook, and if you're lucky, you'll get $5 back, right? So that's not a model that works anymore. So why not spend your time in an arena that's more positive and potentially good for your business? That's all I have to say there. What are your thoughts on that? What are your comments?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, there's what you're doing is you're tapping into to the podcast as audience, right? This is no different than like BNI. You're familiar with BNI, Business Networking International.
Sure. The founder of BNI is a personal friend of mine. He wrote the foreword to 2 of my books, actually. Dr. Ivan Meisner. Yeah, he's amazing.
Yeah. BNI is the same concept. If I'm in a BNI group and there's a banker in there and I'm being exposed to his network, right? So if he knows 500 people in his network, I'm basically getting access to his network. Same with podcasting. If I'm on this show and there's, 5,000 people listening to it, I'm being exposed to those 5,000 people that probably would never have heard or seen me before. But I wanted to go back to what you said with the election, because I didn't know JD Vance very well. Like, I didn't know him personally. I watched his movie about him and all that, did all that, but I still didn't really know him. But when he was on Theo Vaughn, I don't know if you watched that episode.
Me too. It was great.
I was like, Theo Vaughn's throwing out stuff, saying things that probably presidential and vice presidential people shouldn't be saying or talking about. They're talking about drugs and different stuff. And JD was putting up and laughing.
Too, man. That was hilarious.
Yeah. But you could tell that, like, JD, his natural self was coming out on that on that podcast, and he probably was holding himself back a little bit. But being a Marine myself and knowing that he's a Marine, like, I know that type of personality, I know that type of character, and so that really sold me on him as a pick, just because of that exposure. And that would have never happened had he not been on, a long form podcast like Theo Vaughn's.
Yeah, when he was talking about, his mom and her addiction, and he went really deep into that, it really humanized him for me. Theo also had Donald Trump on the show, and he talked about his own cocaine addiction and Donald Trump's brother, who died of alcoholism, basically. His brother Fred, right? His older brother Fred Jr. And I thought that, like, I like Trump. I've always liked Trump. I know a lot about him. But in that moment, I thought, wow, dude, you're a human being. You're going through the same crap the rest of us are going. You got people you care about that are gone, and it hurts you. And I feel for you. That's what came to me. And Kamala Harris, I just challenge you, Brad, to say one thing personal about her that you know. Is there even one thing you know? So, because she never let herself go in a venue where that would come out. And here's
Right.
the interesting thing: people who know her have said that, and I'm sure you didn't know this. I didn't know this until I heard it. That she's actually a near world class level roller skater. Like this chick, when she was young, was
Yeah.
crazy, amazing. Now, I wouldn't have voted for her, but I thought that was pretty cool. I go, damn, if you're good at roller skating, I'd love to have heard that. Like, what'd you do? What got you into it and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
It's pretty cool,
Yeah.
but it never came out. And the whole point is, if you're a man, get rid of the news, listen to podcasts, you'll learn some interesting shit about real people, and be like me and Brad and start going on shows. It's good for you. You'll get comfortable having conversations with people. And the beauty of podcast guesting is you'll reach the audience, but this is the part where a lot of people don't get it, Brad. And I think I talked to you about this a little bit. You also get to build a relationship with the host. You and I know each other now. So because I was on your show and I liked what you were all about, I wanted you on my show. So this gives you an opportunity to reach some people. And because I know a thing or two about podcast guesting and that's interesting to you, you and I are going to have a conversation about that. So this is what happens when you go on shows. You build friendships and relationships with hosts. And I think all that's good. And again, this isn't a podcast about that. I talk about that on my business podcast. But because you brought up this thing about not listening to the news, I say listen to more podcasts and read more books. Brad, what's your top 2 favorite books that you recommend men read?
Are we talking like business or more like
Anything. Good for a
yeah,
man's soul, business, whatever. You choose.
yeah. Well, I mean, obviously we got to go with the Bible. Like that's like, the number one book for, for all of that. You got your Bible there. I got mine here. Mine's right
Amen.
here too,
Amen,
sitting on
brother.
my desk.
Amen.
That's number one. As far as like, well, almost all the books I read are nonfiction, business related books. But
So
the one that I think that what's that?
what's a really good one?
Mindset by Carol S. Dweck will really help with some mindset stuff that carries over from childhood. I actually give that book away anytime someone joins my coaching program. I send them a care package, and that's one of the books that I send them is Mindset by Carol S. Dweck. It really opens your eyes to how much your childhood and things that happen in your childhood affect you as an adult, and you don't even realize it.
They do. Um, I bought that book. I've yet to read it because I buy books way faster than I read them. And I read over 100 books a year. So it's kind of crazy,
Yeah,
bro. But I buy them way faster than I read them. So the
yeah,
books are piling up. Like you can see, this is not a virtual background. This is actually my office it's one of the places where I have a lot of books. I got probably 1,000, 1,500 books in my bedroom. And then downstairs in the living room, I got 2 bookcases full of books. So um, I'm going to read that book. It's going to come close to the top of the pile because of your recommendation. Um, I will also
well,
say,
she talks. Sorry,
go
I
ahead.
didn't mean to cut you off
Yeah,
there, Nikki. But
go ahead, go ahead.
she talks about the difference between a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. And that's the main things that you need to learn about in the book is that a fixed mindset is I was born with this gifts. I was born with this set of knowledge, this IQ, this is just what I was born with and I'm stuck with it. A growth mindset is I can achieve and do whatever I want, right? Like I can become smarter. I can learn more. I can get better at this skill. And there's different areas of our life. I mean, we can have a fixed mindset in relationships and have a
Yeah.
growth mindset in business. Like it's not universal across the board. And so that really opened my eyes to a lot of head trash that I personally had, that I had to work through and get over in terms of in business. So yeah, I highly recommend that book.
I'm going to make sure I bring it near the top of my pile because I've got some books I want to read in the next few weeks. Um, I have a social media platform I belong to called Goodreads.
Mm-hmm.
Amazon owns it, and Goodreads allows you to enter a yearly reading challenge, how many books you're going to read, and track those books, and you can get connected with friends, and they'll give you recommendations. So I've done the reading challenge since 2015. I think this will be my 10th year this year. In
Wow.
the last 6 years, including this year, I've done at least 100 books a year. and it's and physical books, not audio books. I don't really do audio books. I think it's really good to do that. This book, Mindset, it reminds me of a personal development program that I did back in 2016 called the Hoffman Process. You ever heard of the Hoffman Process, Brad?
I don't think I have. No, I don't think so.
So it's been around since the late 60s. The fellow who created it, his name was Bob Hoffman. And it's available in, I think, about 24 countries around the world. Obviously, in the U.S., Bob Hoffman was an American. And the whole point of this program is to have you look at the patterns that were imprinted on you from the time you were born till the time you were 13 years old. It's a intense program. I think it's about 8 days long. You put your phone away while you're in the program. Like, you're not allowed to have your phone physically on your person because there's some stuff they do. I found that to be a very impactful program. One of my mentors had been telling me to do it for 10 years before I finally listened to him, and I did it. But that's a really, really good program. If you've never heard of it, you check it out. It's interesting.
Is
It's
it in
cool.
person or is it online?
In person.
Okay.
You fly somewhere, they put you up, they feed you everything. Yeah. And
It
the
sound
people that go there are it's not a cheap course. I want to tell you, like,
sure.
back when I took it, it cost like $7,000. And I'm sure it's more expensive now. I'm sure it's 10 grand plus, but I'll tell you this, the people that were in the course with me, they were some of the highest level people I've ever been around in my life. Like, we're talking multimillionaires, billionaires were in the room. Like, there was a lady who had been like a supermodel, like crazy level people were in the room. And it really opened my eyes to a lot. So
Isn't that interesting though that the higher you go in the wealth scale, right? In terms of like
yeah,
success scale. Let's use success instead of wealth. That
yeah.
those people generally invest the highest amount in themselves.
It is interesting, and I just want to tell you, Brad, I invest a minimum 10% of my income in myself a year. I probably invested $300,000 to $350,000 in myself. There's a man that is has been one of my clients. He's not anymore. He actually did my podcast guesting program as well. He's a high level business dude. And he told me he's invested over $1 million in his personal and professional development. And he continues to do so. So he just signed up to do a Grant Cardone program. I think he's there right now. He's from Florida or California, wherever the heck it happens to be. All of the top mentors I have invest massive amounts of time, energy, and money in that sort of program. This year, like, I have 3 coaches I work with, one for health and fitness, one for business and mindset, one for relationships. And I hire people to specifically do stuff for me when I need help with something. You know what I mean? Like,
Yep.
I'm going to be doing a lot of, like, not podcast video, but just general videos shooting. And so I'm hiring a guy to help me out with that kind of stuff. I'm attending 2 conferences this year. One of them is so high level and secret, I'm not even allowed to speak about it. Except to say I'm attending it. I can't say what it is or who's going to be there, but
Right.
there's some pretty cool people. I'll tell you about it offline anyways. And the other one is Patrick Bet-David's conference. I'm attending that in September in Florida as well. So, I'm looking at this year coming up, 2025. The amount of money I'm investing in myself in 2025 is probably going to be close to 60 grand. And in 2024, it's probably close to 45,000.
Yeah.
You got to do it. You got to do it as
Yeah.
far as I'm concerned. One of my former clients, and then he became a mentor, is Robin Sharma. He wrote a book called The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari and the 5 a.m. Club, right? Sold millions of copies. He likes to say, if you want to grow your business, you want to double your business in a year, triple your investment in personal and professional development. For me, that
Yep.
would mean take it from 45K to 135K. Wow, that'd be a big lift. But yeah, that's what he said. So there you go.
No, I mean, that's, I haven't hit your numbers yet, but I'm coming up on probably close to 100,000 in personal investment in that.
Yeah.
But the most I've ever done was earlier this year. I joined a mastermind, and it was $20,000 just for that mastermind. And what's crazy about it is that even though like the purpose, it was like a marketing mastermind. It was really
Yeah.
more geared around like marketing yourself and business and stuff. And even though I didn't like get the exact result that I wanted in terms of the marketing, I actually made several other connections in that group that now I'm using to further my business. So it's,
That's super
sometimes
smart.
it's not always the result you're looking for that the result you get.
No, 100%. So, Brad, before we wrap up, pick yourself up this book by Andrew Capp. And if you like, I'll introduce you to him because I interviewed him on both my shows. Actually, I interviewed him on one show and we repurposed it for the second show. Andrew is amazing. He talks about the law of attraction. Most people who talk about the law of attraction just speak in generalities. Andrew actually gave me a daily process of 10 minutes to do with 7 different ones that he has me do. I've been doing it every day since late October, every day without fail for 10 minutes. I have signed up 12 clients in that 7-week period. 12 clients in 7 weeks for me is very good. In addition, my relationship has become more harmonious. And I think I told you I'm doing bodybuilding and I'm going to do a show next year.
I didn't know that.
Oh, I thought I told you that last time. Sorry about that. But
Oh.
yeah, I'm doing that. So it's a grind. The whole thing is a grind. The only thing that's different in the last few weeks in terms of what I'm doing, my effort, my food, is this law of attraction business. And I got to tell you, the workouts are flowing more smoothly. My mindset's better because I'm not going, I just want to stop. I'm going, let's push through. Let's get more done. And I feel like my muscles are getting bigger and my waist is tightening up. Nothing else has changed. I'm eating the exact same amount of food, exactly, because my food is dialed in that way. I'm doing the exact same amount of sleep. It's just my mind is shifting and it's causing some manifestations in the body. I think you'd really like Andrew. If you'd like, I'd be happy to make that introduction for you, but you should definitely read the book and do the LOA process. It'll be something that'll be helpful to you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to check that out and even talk to him as well. I'm all about mindset stuff.
Yeah, you'll love Andrew. He's awesome in that regard. So, Brad, I really enjoyed having you on the show. Let's, in the new year, bring you on the business podcast. We'll have more of a business conversation. But I really appreciate you identifying this, gold rush of contracting age that we're living in for men and advising them to really look at skilled trades very seriously, especially if they're unsure of which direction to go in career-wise. I think it's really good advice, and I really appreciate you giving it to me and to them. I learned a lot, and we're recording this just before the end of 2024, so I want to wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, brother, and God bless you.
Thank you so much, Nikki. It was a blast. And I'll just throw it out. If anybody is interested in getting into the trades, reach out to me. I may know somebody in your town or area that's hiring. So please feel free to reach out to me.
That's good. We'll definitely put that in the show notes. Definitely. Folks, we'll put Brad's website and contact info in the show notes. Definitely reach out to him. 100%. All right. And that's a wrap.
Thank you for listening to the Sovereign Man Podcast. If you're ready to take charge of your life and become the man you've always wanted to be, we invite you to join the movement at sovereignman.ca.